Okay, we're live, folks.
Hi, tonight's meeting is the North Shore Diversity and Inclusion Committee meeting on, let's say, January 7th. Becca, do you want to read the meeting rules?
Yeah, sure. So pursuant to Governor Baker's March 12, 2020 order suspending certain provisions of the open meeting law, General Laws, Chapter 38, Section 18, and the Governor's March 15, 2020 order imposing strict limitation on the number of people that may gather in one place, this meeting will be conducted via remote participation. No in-person attendance by members of the public will be permitted. This meeting will be streamed live, but will not have an option for public participation. To view or listen only, please visit the Town of Northborough's webpage, which will take you to the Town of Northborough's YouTube streaming link.
Thank you. Happy New Year, everybody. It's good to see everybody. Hope everybody had a good New Year and good holidays. I'm sure everybody is still trying to digest what happened yesterday. I know I am. Pretty unbelievable day. The first order of business we have for tonight is to approve the meeting notes from our last meeting. Mary, thank you very much for putting those together. Any discussion or input on those notes?
I actually have a question, Tim, and I
Yeah.
actually tried to reach Becca because I know pursuant to the open law and everything, I didn't know, I thought Mary did an outstanding job taking the notes, but should we have so much in the notes because it's discoverable? And I don't know if it was different because of the Zoom, we're Zooming and everything, but I thought that basically on the open law, that maybe just a statement and resolution, but not everything, not as intense.
I think, Becca, and correct me if I'm wrong, if you know, I think the notes are to capture the significant points of discussion in the spirit of the meeting, not necessarily to capture, a verbatim dictation of the meeting. But I read through the notes. I thought they were great. I thought they were spot on. So, and I'm sure as Mary goes through, she'll get a better understanding of what's needed and what's not for the notes. And like I said before, you feel free to reach out to Town Hall if you have any questions or to Diane Wackel. She does a great job with the selectmen's meeting and.
I thought they were good. I thought they were good, but I didn't know that. My question was, like, does she need to record everybody's vote or just say, the voted to accept or anything? I just, just a quick thing because I just didn't know.
Yes, everybody's vote needs to be recorded.
Everybody's vote individually?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, no problem. So we need to approve the notes. I just need a motion to approve the notes.
So moved.
Is that enough, Becca? That's enough, isn't it?
Yeah, Mary can spice it up when she does tonight's minutes, That's fine. I'll second that motion.
Perfect. So we just need a verbal vote on that. So I'll just start in order on my screen from top to bottom. Miriam?
Yep. I approve.
Mary?
Yep. Yes.
Chica?
Approved. Looks good.
Virginia?
Aye.
Becca?
Aye.
And myself, I vote aye. So the meeting notes are approved unanimously. Thank you. The other thing that I didn't put on the agenda, I just shared with everybody the police report. Every month, the police and fire department share a report. It's available to the public, but I shared the police report because I don't even know what page this is. one. The third page, the chief has a discussion about the ongoing hiring process for the new officers at the town. And I just thought it was important to note that the chief has made it a priority to diversify the police department. And he's included Fred George in on that process to hire somebody. If people don't know, Fred George is Virginia's husband. So I just wanted to share that with everybody. Over the summer too, I had a long conversation with the chief about a number of things, and this was one of the things that we had a very productive conversation about in the efforts that he's made and continues to make to diversify the department. I know that the chief's main concern over everything else is the safety of not only the community, but the officers. And one of the points that he made that thought of was that diversity actually makes his officers safer. So he is very proactive as much as he can be. The tough part with the department is there are a lot of different steps that are state mandated that people need to get through before they become on the department. And oftentimes that's where the hiccups come in. The physical assessment test, that's a big one that some people just have a tough time with. But that's out of the town's control. That's nothing that the town can't change that or dictate somebody passes that. That's controlled by the state. So I just wanted to share that with everybody so that everybody, so it is part of record, and the people, especially on this committee, can see that we do have support for the efforts that we're doing in the community, and the work that we're doing, is not and will not go unnoticed.
Great.
I have a quick question, Tim. Is there an opportunity for someone who maybe didn't pass the PAT step, that physical assessment test, to come back if they receive any feedback or anything like that, or things they can work on, or is it just a one and done sort of thing? Or we don't know, which is
I don't know. I mean, I can ask the chief about that. I would assume that if you fail the PAT, it doesn't mean that you can never be a police officer. I would assume you just have to go through the process again. And when you come to, and if the position filled in Northborough or wherever they need to apply to another community, and then pass it at that point. If you just have a bad day, whatever.
Yeah. Okay, that's super helpful. I know those tests are really grueling. I'm a law enforcement kid, so I've seen that firsthand. It's a lot, so I can only imagine, especially trying to get more people in, different types of folks, to give them another opportunity if it's appropriate. Like if they were likable all the way up until that point, if there's an opportunity to bring them back. That's all.
Yeah. I don't know the process that in depth, but
yeah, that's okay. Totally fine.
Find out. Any other questions on that? Okay. The next thing I wanted to have a discussion about was a discussion about what question or questions we should be asking for the report that we issue to the board. I've just found that when I'm facing a big issue or a complex issue, if I know the right question to find answers to, it just makes things that much easier. And as I've been thinking about what we need to do as a committee, the question I keep coming back to is how can we make Northborough more diverse? Because you can have diversity without inclusion, which is like, I don't want to say the worst case scenario, but it's not the best case either. You can have a whole bunch of different people and none of them feel included. That's not what you want. And I can't imagine inclusion without diversity. you know, it's kind of hard to say we're an inclusive town when everybody's exactly the same. Well, of course you're inclusive. Everybody's exactly the same. So when I just think about the town, is it going to be a challenge to be inclusive because we just don't have enough diversity? And that's the point I kept coming back to is I think there's absolute support to be inclusive, but I do think we need to do a better job on the diversity front and how do we make our community more diverse, more accommodating. I don't know if accommodating is the right word, but inviting, welcoming to people of different backgrounds. And is that the right? This is just my thinking, and it's just that was just the question that I kept on coming back to is what does the town need to do to increase diversity?
So I think we touched on really good points in the last meeting on recruitment between the police station, the fire station, our teachers, the town hall. And that's definitely the foundation, right? But we still have plenty of residents that are living here in our community that may not feel included or welcomed. So I think while we're trying to build up a more diverse administration, I think we also need to address how can we make those that are living here feel more welcome and included, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I think
as I listen to you, I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
Tim.
Sorry.
So Mary, as I listen to you, I agree with everything you're saying, but in the back of my mind, I'm thinking that we have opportunities maybe for training or, you know, presenting seminars or things that we can help communication. Maybe communicating and getting people to understand some of the issues that a community would face, that once we work on some of those, we could also get more people who are willing to look at Northborough because they see that we are a diverse or we're trying to encourage diversity. So I think in addition to what you're saying, I think it's presenting seminars or workshops in D&I, on D&I.
Great.
Yeah, to your point, Mary, I think being an inclusive community is probably the biggest way that we can attract or be more welcoming to people that are different, with different backgrounds. You know, I do a lot of work in the corporate world, and they often view this as just a numbers game. We just need to get X amount of this type of person and this type of person, then we'll hit a certain percentage and then we're diverse and inclusive. And it's like, no, that's not how it works. So it's not just about
The numbers.
attractive place for people to live, to visit, to do business, to go out to eat, to all those different things that go into a vibrant community, but it's also, you got to be inclusive. You got to, you know, it's just, how do you be more welcoming to people? You know, that's to me, that's what it is. But, you know, it's
So, yes, the business owners that we have in the community, I know a handful of them, but are there business owners in the community that we could reach out to who are a minority or part of this group we're trying to reach out to that you're aware of, that we could try to get them involved some way, or perhaps reach out to them as part of our surveying? And
yeah, I think that will be an important part of this project. I think that's going to be a key point to the recommendations that we make to the board. It's not only the residents, it really is the entire community. It's the residents, it's the small businesses, it's the large businesses, it's everybody that we can get involved in this, the better. you know, so yeah, absolutely getting the business community involved.
And how do we do that? What's the best way to approach that?
Well, one of the people that we can speak to is Karen Chapman. She's the head of the 495 Chamber of Commerce.
Mm,
So I know her not only for my own business, but just the work that she does for the businesses in town. She's spoken with the Board of Selectmen on a number of occasions, so I'm sure she would be open to either joining us at a meeting or, you know, me having a conversation with her. You know, either one of those, I'm sure she'd be more than open. She's you know, obviously with her position, she's very pro small business, and anything that she can do to help the businesses in town, she's open to.
I think it would be great to have her as a guest on one of our meetings.
Yeah. I can reach out to her and see if we can make that happen.
Yeah, because she probably has such a sphere that we can kind of tap into to get some ideas and what's worked for people that we don't have to waste, or doesn't work for people that we don't waste our time on. And, you know,
Yeah, a good question to ask her too would be if she knows of any programs to help us attract minority-owned businesses, women-owned businesses, if there's anything that the town can do, or just in general, that if somebody, if a minority or women-owned business wanted to open in Northborough, is there something that we could do to help them make that happen? I know there's program. I've gone through the women-owned business process a couple of times, and it's pretty thorough. They really, the federal government wants to make sure that you're truly a woman-owned business, so it's pretty thorough.
Yeah. Yeah.
But that's certainly, and I mean, and again, it's like, this is why, like, I'd like to tie everything back to what's the right question that we should be asking. Because it just helps with the discussion and kind of keeps us on point.
Mm-hmm.
So what does everybody think about the diversity angle or the diversity question? Do you think that's the appropriate question that we should be answering? Because again, that leads to so many other different areas that we could focus on. The business, education in Virginia, the training and communications is another huge piece of this. You know, like I drive around town. I gave a speech for the tree lighting and looking at town common, and it's beautiful and it's lovely. Are we doing enough to include everybody in those events? And is there enough on the town common to include everybody with the decorations and everything they put up? I think those are things we should include too. That's part of the culture of the community too.
Right. The speaking of that, and forgive me if this is already being done and I've missed it, but the signage that we have in the center of town, do we recognize different holidays that are celebrated by different cultures on there? Maybe.
No.
No, not that I know of.
No, it doesn't. That is put up by the Lions. And if you want to get something, you have to send them an email and request it. But to my knowledge, I've done that, but to my knowledge, they don't just put things out for the holidays. I mean, it's a good thought that we could, that could be one of the things we could approach them to see if they would be willing to do that. But as a general rule, they don't.
Yeah.
I mean, there are so
It's
many
only activities.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I know the people that run that group, and they're wonderful people. So I don't think it's not. I don't think it would be an issue at all if we were to ask them. I think they would absolutely participate.
Right. There's so much.
That's a good point.
So much visibility. I think we should take advantage of that. Is there a cost involved, or is the Lions kind of pick that up?
It's free.
Yeah.
Okay. So Tim, you had said like, is the question diversity? So what is the question? Like, what is our diversity question? You know what I mean? You said something about, are we asking about diversity?
Yeah, how do we make our community more diverse? What do we need to promote diversity? What do we need to, or how do we be more welcoming to people of different backgrounds? Like, those are the types of questions that when I was thinking about it, that I kept coming back to. And I'm not, that's just my opinion. That's what I kept coming back to.
Right.
I don't think we could just look at diversity. I think it needs to be diversity and inclusion.
Yes,
because
sorry.
if you say diversity, a lot of times people are just thinking of color. And we also want to look at gender issues because there are those. And, so I think if we do diversity and inclusion, I think we'll be better and can do more.
Yes. I apologize for that. So I'm so used to talk when I talk about this with my colleagues at work, like it's when we say diversity, like when we're having internal discussions, that just encompasses diversity, equity, and inclusion. So I apologize for that. Yeah, it should absolutely include, because it's race, gender, sexual orientation,
Yes.
any handicapped, elderly. We want to be welcoming to everybody.
Yeah.
Yep.
And how do we do a better job of that? Start with the point too, that I don't, and this is just my perspective on things. Like, I think we're doing a bad job at it now. Like, I think there's plenty of places that are much worse, but we could certainly do a better job.
Definitely. I agree.
I think one of the words that comes up a lot and has come up more and more lately, when you look at what governments are doing, it's about equity, and sort of like, a lifting tide rises all boats. Well, getting everyone on the same level so that they have the same access to all the same programs. I think that we are doing okay, but there are a lot of really little changes that we can make that I think would have a really big impact. Really easy stuff that this group just needs to sit down and put on paper, and and we just have to do. And I think in a lot of ways, some of the small changes will impact the bigger stuff, right? Like, if we start making small changes, you're going to see more people are interested in us because we're making those small changes, and that makes us look like an equitable, diverse organization. Like, really, like flying the pride flag in the summer, like, that is such an easy thing to do. But like, if you come through Northborough and you're a member of the queer community and you see a pride flag flying in June, it's going to make a big difference to you.
Absolutely.
If you're a business resident interested in what, you know what I mean? So I think, I don't want to.
Becca, if you tie what you just said to what Mary just said, for example, even if we went to the Lions Club and say, we want to recognize June as Gay Pride Month, and put the flag or message up there, something like that. I mean, there are small things, like you're saying. If you just put connected to of you, just using that as an example, something we haven't done before, could be very useful.
Yeah. And I did want to mention one thing, Mary, that relates to what you're saying. I know that my office is working on a town common policy right now. We've had requests lately over the last few years to put different members of different religious communities want to put things on the common, and we've sort of just said no to everything. And I think that probably we should talk about, like, if you're going to put lights on a tree, then maybe you want to think about having a menorah too, or, so I think those are little recommendations that could go a really long way.
Becca, would that be something that this committee could help with, putting
Absolutely.
that together? That could be a good product for us to start with, because the Common, I know they want to, if what did you do a ribbon cutting and all like that, and if we could come up with the work with you and having to put a diverse policy together, that could talk about the work that we're doing as a committee, plus get the work done for the town.
Yeah, I have, we have a draft. So what I could do, if the committee is comfortable, is get it out to you all before the next meeting, and everyone can take a look at it, and we can talk about it at the next meeting. I think that's great. I don't want us to get like too siloed into stuff. I know that like the possibilities are endless, and I don't want any of us to get too tapped out on this stuff, because you can get spread really thin really quickly, because there's a lot out there. So trying to figure out I'm just trying to wrap my head around how we're going to approach this huge concept. There's 9 of us. I don't.
Well, I think to like the lion sign, the flying of the pride flag in June on Town Common. Another note, of Black History Month. Is there stuff that we could do for Black History Month? I just think ahead to when we make the presentation to the Board of Selectmen next winter. Like these things, these are easy wins.
Mhm.
These are things that there's no heavy lifting at all to do any of these things. So if we start our recommendations with, step 1 is doing these things. These are real easy things that are just a phone call or an email, and there's no, and then we kind of expand on those. And I do think that part of the recommendations is going to be for this committee to continue, because I do think that there's going to be a need for a committee like this to aid with implementation of some of the recommendations, like training and communication. Like that's a big one. That takes, that's a budget, that takes a little bit more effort, that takes research, but it's key and it's important. So I think if we start with small, easy, not small, but easy things that are easy wins, easy to implement, that will have a big impact. I agree with you 1,000%. And then move to the larger things. I think that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
I wanted to recommend, and I think, Tim, working in private industry, you probably, companies have used this. The government puts out the recognized diversity months and days, and they're all listed. You can pull it off, like starting with Black History Month, starting with June, Gay Pride, March is Women's Month. They actually list all those things that a town should be recognizing. And we could use that as a start.
Yeah.
Are you familiar with what I'm talking about?
Great idea.
Yes, yeah.
Yep.
I also believe there's National Hamburger Day, which I am a huge.
No, that's not on that list, though.
Yeah, I think that's a great idea, Virginia. And I really like the idea of us, honing in on what our key focuses are, because I envision this becoming almost like our logo, or the way that our team shows up, right? And we can go as far as saying, as we start to get the word out about what our team is doing or our group is doing, that we can start getting those business owners on board, and maybe they display the same logo or the same sort of like an ally kind of logo, similar to what we've seen probably in colleges and other spaces. There can be something similar to that. So this is an inclusive place too. And that would probably be coveted among business owners to start saying, I actually want to put that up in my business as well. And we can start to just bring everybody along this journey and start to also highlight a lot of what our team is doing. So whether that's like on our website, on our town website, even if we go as deep as saying we're going to include this in our town mission, I think there's a lot of opportunity for us to show that we're inclusive, whether it's on our online platforms or what people see just kind of driving through town, like Mary was talking about. So there's a lot of opportunity for us here, but I think we need to really hone in on, if it's equity plus 2 other things, like, we can include those, and then people remember, like, oh, okay, diversity and inclusion are these 3 things, versus it being this big, this broad topic that people just can't really wrap their heads around.
What if we, I don't know if this is a reasonable idea, but what if we had, like, on the whole kind of logo idea, it doesn't necessarily need to be a logo, but some
Yeah,
sort
could be something.
of thing. We could even reach out to like the middle school 7th and 8th or 6th through 8th and have like not a contest, but they could create a logo and
I
maybe
like that.
alternate, or maybe we go with it. I don't know, just to kind of help educate them and make them understand that this is a really important, and I'm sure many of them already do, but it would be including them.
So I want to just, I think, I'm sorry, the lady who's with the school committee isn't on the call tonight, because I thought last week when the last meeting when we sort of talked about that, we were saying we don't really need to focus on the schools. The schools have a diversity and inclusion and equity committees, and they're doing their work. So, I just think we need to focus on the things that we talked about, like looking at recruiting and training in town hall, making people aware of what inclusion and diversity issues are, and what some of the things we can do. I love the idea of using the sign and making some knowledge. I love the idea of helping with developing the policy for the town commons. I don't this is just personally me, that I think that the schools they're doing their work. So I think we need to try to see what can we do in the town to improve the diversity, inclusion, and we're also using diversity, inclusion, and equity as the topic of what we're doing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and Mary, was your idea like maybe we can just tap into their talent, if you will, to create something, not really getting too deep into trying to pull in the schools into what we're trying to create, but more so see if we want to just include the young people in the process of creating something that denotes that we're a diverse town. Is that more of what you were talking about? Yeah. So I mean, we can take it or leave it for sure. But I'm with you, Virginia. I think that trying to go down that path at this point is probably going to be more than we can chew at this point. Yeah.
But I think it's an excellent suggestion. We can pass it on to our school representatives and say, hey, this is some thought. What do you think? And let them run with that.
Right.
Yeah, I like it.
Me too.
Yeah, I mean, it's in a way it's similar, but like we use the Assabet Valley, the tech school, to do building projects in town.
Mm-hmm.
So it's the same. You just give the kids an opportunity to participate, and it's just a real world experience. So if there's, in the high school, if there's an art program where the kids are into logo designs or that sort of thing, you can have them take part to come up with a NDEI logo, Northborough Diversity, Equity, Inclusion logo. That I love the idea of having it available for businesses to put up. I think that would be just terrific.
Yeah, awesome.
That's cool.
We can be a leader. The town of Northborough can be a leader. There aren't a lot of communities out there that are really kind of profiling this, that are really making it a priority. And we can do that. We can be a leader in the Commonwealth, and right?
Yeah,
I agree.
No,
Wholeheartedly.
I think that's part of the challenge, though, is
Do it.
there's so much that we can do, and how do we just hone it down into
Well, I'm happy to hear that they're already working on it on the school level, because that does take the burden off of us quite a bit. That's very significant.
The town of, for an example, Burlington, the town of Burlington, they're hiring a director of diversity, inclusion, and equity, who's going to be working with the town and the schools. They're going to pay someone to do that for that town. So a lot of towns are coming up with committees and leaders and everything since the George Floyd thing. I'm sorry.
I want to point out to the group, so I get this magazine, it's called Public Management. It's like what local government nodes read at night. And this is the cover this week, or this month, Equity and Inclusion. And the woman on the cover is the Director of Racial Equity, Inclusion, and Belonging in Burlington, Vermont. And they talk about, like, you know, one of the questions is, what advice do you have for small local governments trying to create an equitable and inclusive environment? And I was thinking about this as we were talking, because I thought it was right on the money. It says, don't ask, how do I attract diverse talent? Or how can I increase diversity in my organization? Instead, ask what it means to be inclusive of other races, cultures, and perspectives. It's not about seeking answers externally, it's about looking inward and performing organizational analysis. So I think that, like, and I was doing this, like, how do we get diverse people to be interested in our organization? That's not, you know, like, we have to look inward and find out what are we not doing that we should be doing is the big question. And, you know, I think Virginia is right about, you know, what is the stuff that this group has some control over? And a lot of that is, you know, implementing trainings, implementing, you know, hiring tactics, or you know, training, hiring through different mediums, or whatever it is that we should be doing. And I wonder if the schools could be a resource for us, because I think that the schools are already doing stuff that the town is probably not doing. I know when I worked in Grafton, like, they had Greater Boston PFLAG come in and do presentations to like 7th and 8th graders throughout the public school district, and it was part of the curriculum. And I don't know if Northborough does stuff like that, but if they do, they're way ahead of the town, because we don't do any of that for staff. And when most of the staff were that age, they probably weren't getting, you know, training on this stuff when they were in school. So I just thought that was interesting.
I do know that Algonquin, or the Northborough Southborough Regional School, they started a diversity and inclusion committee here in Northborough. So I don't know how far along they are. I see, Miriam, you shaking your head. Could you tell us, do you know much about that or anything about it?
I don't, but I do know a couple people who are in it. I've spoken to them, but I haven't spoken to them recently, so I'm not sure what their current update is. I'll reach out to the couple people who I know, and I'll definitely ask them about what conversations they're having in their committee. But yeah, to speak to Becca's point about the quote you were talking about, I think that's a really good point. I think when we ask ourselves, like, how can we attract more diversity? I think we fall a little bit into a trap of like performative things. I think we definitely do have to look at what we can do for the people who are living in Northborough. And that in itself is just enough to show that we are a diverse town, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
So one of the things that I think there are more people of color in Northborough that we just don't know about. I don't know where they, you know, every once in a while I'll see someone like Shakira. I've been here 20 some years. I never met you, for an example, or the other lady that was on before, or the guy, and Miriam certainly. So I think we have a lot of people, but I guess how do we get to know and you know, just realize we have a lot of talent here that maybe we're just not touching, but how do we reach them and how do we touch them? I don't know. So maybe it's like the Community Affairs Committee used to do things in the community. Oh, when we did Apple Fest, people would come out for Apple Fest and we would see, wow, here's some people I haven't seen before. So it sort of revolves back to me. What are we doing in the community?
Right. It's about even having events that attract people of different ethnicities and races and backgrounds and lifestyles. And then we meet. you know, and then they meet other people and we become more interactive and diverse and inclusive, you
Yeah.
know.
I think because the town is sort of spread out, that we're all in different areas and because everybody's so busy, people are going about their lives and we really don't see them. But maybe something on the town commons, or maybe, you know, some things, once we open up a little bit, we'll be able to, you know, mingle and interact and get to know people.
Mhm.
I definitely agree. Having more events that are like community wide is definitely a good start.
Yeah.
The hard part with community events is everyone is so busy that they're busy with their lives and they're busy with this and they're busy. It has to be something that really has the energy to attract people to attend, right? And
Yeah.
how do we do that successfully?
Well, Apple Fest did it
Apple Fest,
when they were
great. Yep.
they did it. But you know what? When you speak of that, when we had town meeting, we didn't get. We got more people this year, but we don't get a lot of people at town meeting where they have an opportunity to come in and speak and ask questions and pass budgets. People don't come to town meeting. We have to wait and hope we get a quorum.
Right. Right. Unless there's a big major issue that everyone's
Yes. Yes. White Cliffs bring people out.
right.
Are there opportunities for us to host some sort of like, when things open up and are safer, to host some sort of like woman-owned market or something like that, that could bring people to town on the common or wherever we decide to host it? Like, I know other towns do farmers markets, and that typically will bring in some diversity because you have people who like own farms or, you know, I don't know, make things at home and they want to sell their wares. Like, there could be opportunities for us to do something that's specific to women or you know, with people of color, or however we want to position it. That could be an interesting opportunity for us and something we could do like annually, something that people could look forward to. So that's another idea for like community where people might be more interested, because it's less of like, you're just coming and congregating, we don't know what we're going to get of that, and more so you can actually support this cause and get something that you'll enjoy in the future. So that's another idea.
That's great. Yeah. So we do have some, and of course with COVID, we haven't had any for over a year, but there is at the school, Melican School, they do craft fair in October by the one of the women's group. Then you have the Apple Fest, which when it just mobilizes the town for 3 days.
Yeah.
And that's awesome. But then there was a talk of a farmer's market kind of thing. So there's opportunity, and you know, we don't, in my opinion, we don't have to do everything. Maybe we could reach out like to community affairs committee and say to them, you know, we were thinking of this, and then what do you think? And maybe they could, you know, sort of help us or put some of those ideas out there for getting people together. Yeah, good idea.
I know a lot of what we're discussing is like some low-hanging fruit that might be, you know, quick wins for us, which I think are great, and we should definitely pursue that, or at least have it part of our recommendation. But then there's also these longer term opportunities that are coming up too, like when things open up, or, you know, just going to take more time to maybe gain advocacy or figure out how we're going to proceed. So I wonder if it's worth with us kind of coming out with ideas in Spitfire here, for us to really take it back on our own and figure out maybe a couple of ideas each that maybe fit into each of those categories, like something we can do immediately and something that's a little bit more longer term, you know, 1 to 2 years out. And then we can bring that together, and that can start to be the beginning of what we're going to ultimately present. We can refine it, things can drop off or be added, but that might be a nice way for us to, you know, start to have a jumping off point for our next conversation. Because I love this. This is great brainstorming, but I feel like we need to start getting something on paper. Otherwise, it's going to be hard for us to like gather all these ideas.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, I think that's a great idea to have that on the agenda for our next meeting to have a recap on short term and then
Yeah.
a discussion on mid to long term goals.
Yeah, just
The
an
community.
opportunity for us to come together. I don't know if we want to do like a shared document of sorts, maybe on like Google Docs or something, if everybody's comfortable using that as a platform, or if we need to keep things closer knit, we don't want it to be discoverable. I totally get that too. And we can just talk about it here. Either way.
Yeah, Becca, I don't know if Google Docs violates open meeting laws. Like
It
if we
probably
all have
does.
access to the same document between meetings and we're sharing ideas. To me, it seems that it would, but I don't know. Like we do have to follow the open meeting
Absolutely.
laws where, two of us can have a conversation, but three of us can't.
Understood. Yeah,
So I
we
just-
can keep it simple and just talk about it in the meeting so we can abide.
No, I mean, as long as people aren't having a discussion over Google Doc, which I think would be difficult to do. I mean, unless you were just like typing back and forth and updating in real time. I'm not sure. I have to check because I think we may be able to do it.
Consider,
Yeah,
if it's
would it
just
be in
considered-
violation if you just made it a public document? So it's not just between us? I'm not sure.
Yeah, I don't know.
No, I'm not. I don't think it is a violation. I'll check because the alternative is you all send your thoughts to me and then I just send
Right.
them out, which is fine. But it gives people a little bit more autonomy in terms of like they have a light bulb moment at 1 a.m. and they want to
Right.
hop onto their computer let me check.
Okay.
Yeah, because that would be a great way to even just brainstorm some ideas that we can discuss in our next meeting
Mhm.
over the next month that we can just all think about and write down.
Yeah,
Okay, cool. Sounds good.
I like it.
Me too.
One of the things that I wanted to just bring to everybody's attention is the town went through the master plan process to come up with a new master plan for the town. The master plan it's a recommendation. There's no obligation for the town to act on anything that is within the master plan. It's just really to act as a guide for the town for the future, what ultimately the residents want the town to look like in the future. And that document has been done. It's available on the website. So you can take a look at it there. I just wanted to bring it to everybody's attention because we are starting the implementation committee probably within the next month or two. And I'm on that committee, so I will, have an eye towards the goals that we're trying to achieve here. But if you're interested, just watch or listen or participate in those meetings to make sure or gain an understanding of what this committee can do to help that committee things that are in the best interest of everybody. I don't know if I said that the best way, but
Got it.
yeah, just so everybody's aware of that. And then we had a discussion at our last meeting about how often we wanted to meet. It sounds like once a month will work for now if we all go out and, as Miriam was saying, come up with some ideas that we can share at our next meeting. Maybe that's something that we can put on the agenda at our next meeting. Because the other thing that we can do too is once we come up with a scope of ideas, like we can team up and two of us can go off and work on one area of ideas. Two people can go off and work on the other area of ideas to get the details, really drill into them and come up with the other more concrete detail ideas around. We can work in teams and do that too. So, And then when we meet once a month as a committee, then we can share ideas and offer feedback on each team's area of that they're working on.
Mhm.
So that's just another way that we can conduct the committee.
Yep. Good idea.
Makes sense.
Um,
Are we going to stick with Thursdays? I know that there was some concern with Thursdays.
yeah, I think, and Becca, I mean, you would know better than I. It's the difficult or the challenge now is access to Zoom, access to Becca's time, but she has other obligations for other committees, and I don't know if you have a personal life or not, but I mean, I'm sure at some point you don't want to be on a Zoom.
Personal life, what?
Nobody does right now. We're all stuck at home.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So I
there's
think,
there's some scheduling challenges. I know that Hamilton had, he had said that Thursdays were tough for him. I can go back and take another look at the calendar. It's tough because it's like we have 2 Zoom accounts and every single committee in town is trying to utilize those 2 accounts to get their meetings done. I can go back and take a second look and see if there's a possible another day of the week that we could squeeze in.
One thought, other thing, Becca, wasn't it he gets off like later, so maybe might be able to push the meeting back to 8? I don't know if that would be an option, if he could make 8 o'clock on the same day, or is that too late?
I mean, there's no rule about how late your meeting has to.
I mean, I'm talking about people's time.
Yeah.
Because I think he was saying he works late on Thursday and he doesn't get home until a little later. So if we push the meeting back, I don't know, maybe he could make it.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah, I
another alternative.
can reach out to Hamilton individually and try to get a little bit more detail on what exactly, like if 7:30 was okay for him, that would be, I think, reasonable. A half hour we can probably make work. So yeah, I'll get back to everybody.
Okay.
and the one other thing, and this is probably another thing to think about for our next meeting. Is there anybody that we want to invite to participate in our meetings? Like we talked about Karen Chapman from the chamber. Is there anybody else from the town, from the community that we want to have come in and participate in a meeting? And it's just it doesn't mean that we do. It's if the school superintendent, something, not saying that he would be somebody, but somebody of like that, the chief of police, the fire chief, the town administrator.
All of the above. They would add value.
I think those are all good options. Yeah.
Yeah, they would all add value. And
A good idea. Maybe the police chief seems like he really is trying, and he's been trying this for a long time. Maybe we start with him to show support and let him come and share with us his dilemma. Because when Fred and I talked to him, and when we talked to him, he said he's been trying for years, and he was so disappointed. There was a female person who did very well on the test and did not make it. Maybe it might be good for us to hear him and see, we might be able to help him as well. I don't know. This is a thought.
Yeah. All right. So at our next meeting, just put together a list of people we would like to invite. And it doesn't have to be anybody from the community too. If there's people, experts in the area, Deidre works at Northeastern. If there's somebody from a professor or something of that ilk from Northeastern that wants to join him, like it really can be anybody.
I would like to think about, and I can do this, reaching out to maybe a larger city who already has a more established diversity department, or even like Virginia said, diversity and inclusion manager, director, someone who's doing this work full time, and talk to them about, at one point their community was probably where we are, and they have sort of, taken some steps to get where they are. Not that someday Northwell is going to have an equity and inclusion manager, but I don't know. Part of me thinks every town is going to have one at some point. That might be valuable in terms of our scope. It might help to sort of keep us, on the path in the work that we're trying to do. I can take a look around and see which towns have established, diversity and inclusion managers, if that's something.
Yeah, I think that would be great, just to also hear what mistakes they've made.
Right.
Or
Yeah.
committees,
Yeah. Or
managers or committees. Yeah, great idea.
Okay.
That would be enormously helpful.
Yeah,
Thank
that'd
you.
be a great way to learn.
All right, sounds good. Did anybody have anything else they wanted to discuss tonight?
I got a question for you, Tim.
What's that?
So I was in doing research for this committee, something that a lot of, not so much towns, definitely schools, it's too bad Deirdre's not here because she probably would know too, but people spend money on DEI plans, diversity, equity, inclusion plans, and that's basically a professional that comes in and tries to do what we're doing here, but does it all at once, community input. So depending on how far along we get in a year, I think that's something this committee should think about recommending. You're gonna have to spend a little bit of money, but you're gonna get a professional to come in who does this work for a living and look at everything across the board, take every single piece of what we want to incorporate and put it in. It's basically a master plan, but for diversity, equity, and inclusion. So I don't know. I mean, I haven't seen any for governments, I don't think. I've only seen them for like large educational institutions. I don't know, but it's just something we're thinking about.
Yeah, it's.
Good luck
I
with
have-
John on that. We had our budget discussion with him today from Assabet.
That's
It
right.
went well. It went well, but he is a finance guru.
I know.
Yeah.
And it was a great meeting, but he's good. He'll maybe give us $1,000 to start with, and once we prove our worth, he'll give us more. So we should ask for some now because he's forming the budget.
Yeah, I think we're a little bit too late in the budgetary process for
Yeah.
this coming year.
Yeah.
For
FY
next year.
For the next cycle.
Yeah. Yeah, it's an interesting point, Becca, because there's I haven't been able to find any consultants that work specifically for municipalities. I haven't looked that hard, but I have looked, but there's just such an enormous difference between the corporate and private and even education world than there is in the government and municipal world. The rules are just so different, and the buy-in for a corporation's, pretty simple, but for a community, it's just different. It's just a different process. It's just a different animal. So it's, but I do agree that if there's professionals out there that do it, it certainly should be something that we should consider.
Yeah, there's a group, I can't remember. It's there's a government group that does focuses on, it's not ICMA, but it's like an arm of ICMA, International City County Managers Association. They have an arm, a group that focuses on diversity, you know, managers of different races and backgrounds. I wonder if they might have resources like that we can tap into. I can look into that. I don't know. I was just thinking out loud.
No, it's a great idea.
Lots of good ideas.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Something that I was just thinking about was creating some sort of like open, not maybe like a forum or some way for people in the community to share what they would like to see talked about in this committee. And I'm not sure how that could happen, whether that be like talking about it on social media or creating a social media page dedicated to this committee, or creating an email. I'm not sure, but I think that would be a great way to mobilize the community to participate.
Great idea.
I like the idea of a forum. I think that's a great idea.
Becca, do you know if there's any reason why we couldn't have a Facebook page?
Social media.
I don't do Facebook, so I'm out of it.
Yeah, it's a touchy subject for people in government. No, the only concern I have is that if we create a social media page, it is subject to public records, because we are a government body or an extension of one, which means that people cannot delete things. We have to keep a record of everything. So we have to make sure that because anybody can request anything at any time. That's my only concern. You know, it does subject us a little bit to, you know, public records requests. You know, someone's gonna have to monitor the page to make sure people are being appropriate, because again, it's a representation of the town. So I like the idea. You know, if it's really information gathering, I mean, that's something that you guys could do on your own pages. You guys probably already have more followers in town than we could ever hope to gather through creating a new page and trying to get people attracted to it. So I'm wondering if it makes more sense for you all to leverage, you know, where you're already at in the community and try to get some information.
Yeah,
As
I
opposed
think
to
that's a great
creating something new and then trying to get people to come to it and then asking the question, it just will take longer.
I'm on the Northborough Moms page.
Same.
Yeah, so we could probably tap into that. And they do a nice job. Liz Nolan does a really nice job of managing that page. And posts can be deleted versus a town government. That concerns me too. That's a very legitimate concern. So maybe we, you know, tap into Northborough Moms, and they're great. Let me tell you, they're good. It's a lot of good information gathering.
Yeah, I mean, I absolutely think we kind of need to, you know, get a pulse of the community somewhere to see, you know, I know when the board first decided they were going to do this, there was a lot of support. You know, people were really happy that we were taking this step, but now that we've taken this step, we kind of need to know, like, okay, what do you want us to focus on? So I think it's a great idea.
Shika, we could work on that together if you want.
I'd love that. Yeah, let's do that, Mary. That sounds like a plan.
Great. Good.
And Miriam, I don't know, I mean, when did you you graduated from Algonquin, right?
Yeah, I did.
Okay, so you probably have, you know, tapped into the younger crowd.
Yeah.
I'm saying that now.
Yeah, no, it's a really good point that I could definitely reach out to.
But yeah,
Yeah.
definitely the youth of the community. You know, they're going to say something different than
Yep.
even
I was
the
planning on
Northborough
it.
moms. Yeah.
than our folks. Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
But it's huge. I mean, the younger, the millennials, that's who we need to hear from. To, you know, a very different group of people that are very outspoken and confident and involved. So I think that's a really good idea.
Yeah.
All right.
Sounds good.
Well, thank you, Tim. Thank you, everybody.
Anything else?
Thank you. No?
I think that's it. Yeah.
I think we're all set.
Thank
Good.
you.
I just need a motion to adjourn.
Second?
Aye.
Bye.
Aye.
Miriam?
Aye.
Yeah. Aye. Becca? And we are adjourned.
Thank you.
Have a good
We'll
evening,
see you
everybody.
next
Thank you,
month.
Tim.
Thank
Thank you,
you.
Becca, Miriam, everybody.
Yes.
Bye-bye.
Happy New Year.
All right, stay safe.
Good meeting.
Take care, everybody.